What happens when two of the most electric talents in women's basketball find themselves on a collision course? It all began with a gesture that sent shockwaves through the sports world. In April 2023, at the climax of the NCAA Women's Championship, Angel Reese stood in the middle of the court, and after a crucial defensive play against Caitlin Clark, reached her arms wide, mimicking motioning the opposing point guard to bring it on. The crowd's reaction was instantaneous, part disbelief, part exhilaration, as Reese's lob-of-chalk celebration became the defining highlight of the tournament. That moment wasn't just a one-off stunt, it crystallized a deeper narrative, one that fans and pundits would dub the biggest rivalry since Johnson and Bird. Reese's reputation as a relentless rebounder and enforcer contrasted sharply with Clark's reputation for pinpoint shooting and effortless playmaking. Suddenly, every comparison, every statistic, every media headline centered on the Reese vs. Clark storyline. Viewership numbers spiked almost overnight, as casual fans tuned in to see these two head-to-head, not merely as athletes but as avatars of entirely different styles and personas. Yet beneath the media frenzy lay questions. Was this genuine animosity or simply a manufactured spark that fascinated viewers? The answer would come clearer in the months ahead, when recruitment rivalries and college podiums would give way to the brightest stage of them all, the WNBA. But that was only the beginning. When the stakes rose to their highest level on April 1, 2024, the NCAA Elite Eight matchup between Iowa and LSU turned every available television on in America. Caitlin Clark dropped 41 points and dished 12 assists, orchestrating a symphony of long-range bombs and no-look feeds, while Angel Reese battled inside like a force of nature, racking up 20 rebounds and adding 17 points before fouling out in the waning minutes. As soon as tip-off blew, it was clear this would not be an ordinary game. Each possession carried a sense of drama, as Clark's jumpers sparked onlookers to their feet and Reese's thunderous putbacks rattled the rims. By the final buzzer, Iowa had prevailed, and CBS announced that their broadcast had drawn an average audience of 12.3 million viewers, the highest ever for a women's college basketball game. Suddenly, people weren't merely curious about a single taunt. They were hungry to witness the story's next chapter. Yet the afterglow of that game wasn't just about who scored more. Journalists dissected the racial undertones threaded through the hype. Fans debated social media memes portraying the two as superstars locked in mortal combat, and many wondered whether this narrative would survive beyond the bracket. As the confetti fell in Houston, whispers circulated that both athletes would bypass additional college years and leap directly into the WNBA, setting the stage for an even grander collision. And though that clash felt like a culmination, it was really the prologue to a tale that would reshape women's basketball forever. Just 2 weeks later, the WNBA draft on April 15, 2024, transformed anticipation into reality. Caitlin Clark heard her name called first overall to the Indiana Fever, the culmination of a season where every college highlight reel seemed to begin and end with her signature step-back threes. Shortly after, Angel Reese heard her name echo as the 7th pick, joining the Chicago Sky and solidifying what many pundits called the most anticipated rookies class in league history. The Fever's phone lines lit up as fans clamored for tickets. Social media chatter exploded with memes of Clark in blue and yellow, a stark contrast to the vintage-inspired red and blue hues Reese would don. Regional news stations ran segments on how Clark's arrival mirrored the impact of Michael Jordan on Chicago, only this time broadcast on ABC and ESPN instead of the United Center. When Clark's WNBA debut finally arrived on May 18, 2024, she poured in 25 points, dished 7 assists, and shattered the network's cable viewership record, 1.71 million viewers, a benchmark for women's pro sports that was once deemed impossible. Reese, meanwhile, was no sideshow. In her first game with the Sky, she pulled down an astonishing 18 rebounds and poured in 22 points, leading analysts to predict she would rewrite rookie record books. The energy was palpable. Lottery ticket sales soared, street courts hosted, impromptu watch parties, and conversations about jersey sales rivaled any top-selling male athlete. Yet despite the excitement, the ultimate test remained. Would this college rivalry storyline translate into the WNBA? Or would the professional atmosphere temper the drama into something more routine? The season opener loomed on the horizon like a countdown clock, promising to answer that question in all its vivid detail. When May 18, 2025 finally arrived, the entire basketball world held its breath. The Indiana Fever, led by Clark's dazzling court vision and lethal three-point touch, faced off against the Chicago Sky, powered by Reese's punishing presence on both ends of the floor. Tip-off felt electric. The arena felt like a rock concert, with fans chanting, "Clark, Clark," and "Reese, Reese," in alternating waves. By the end of the first quarter, Clark had already notched 10 points, punctuating each tray with a fierce stare that seemed to dare anyone to challenge her. Reese responded emphatically. On one sequence, she snatched a rebound, pivoted, and slammed it home so forcefully the backboard shuddered, eliciting genuine astonishment from the crowd. But as the scoreboard ticked into the third quarter, tensions reached a boiling point. Clark, driving baseline for a contested layup, was met by Reese's outstretched arm. She stumbled to the floor as boos and gasps echoed through the stadium. Replays showed Clark's hand contacting Reese's shoulder, but something about the timing and force led the referees to call a flagrant 1 on Clark. In that instant, both benches emptied, teammates pulled players apart, and the streaming feed cut to a commercial, only to return to fans shouting at their screens. When play resumed, Clark and Reese shot each other laser-focused glances, as if the weight of their entire histories hinged on every possession. By the final buzzer, the Ice Fever had routed the Sky 93-58, but the scuffle lingered in every headline and highlight reel. The question on everyone's mind became clear. Was this searing conflict the birth of a genuine rivalry, or simply a flash of on-court heat destined to fizzle? At its core, the 35-point blowout spoke volumes. Clark finished with a historic triple-double: 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists, becoming just the second player in WNBA history to reach those thresholds in a single game. Could anything more unequivocally signal that she had arrived as a transcendent force? Meanwhile, Reese logged 17 rebounds and 12 points, admirable numbers that underscored her tenacity but paled beside the magnitude of Clark's statistical mastery. Sports writers scrambled to contextualize the lopsided score. Some called it the most dominant rookie performance since the league's inception, while others questioned whether the Chicago Sky's supporting cast could keep pace with a team built around Clark's vision. As for social media, hot takes flooded timelines. Did this performance bury any chance of a sustained rivalry? Commentators on ESPN's post-game show argued that Clark's finesse and Reese's power occupied wholly different arguments. One was a perimeter orchestrator, the other a post-game wrecking ball. Several former WNBA legends chimed in, expressing respect for both, but indicating it felt like comparing apples and bowling balls. Even casual fans weighed in. "It's like comparing a violin to a drum set," quipped one viral tweet. And though resentment brewed in some corners, "Clark got away with murder on that flagrant," raged a Chicago fan. The overall vibe hinted that the rivalry might have met its final buzzer before it really began. Yet the season was young, and both players vowed this would not be their last statement of intent. What would come next? The narrative was far from over. Then, on May 7th, 2025, 11 days before that memorable opener, WNBA analyst Rachel Demita stoked more controversy from behind her studio desk. In a segment that aired on national television, Demita labeled the so-called Reese versus Clark rivalry as dead on arrival. Her argument was straightforward. Clark and Reese played different positions, operated in unique roles for their teams, and their college feud had been amplified by social media algorithms more than genuine hatred. "Fans love a storyline," Demita asserted, "but this one isn't sustainable on the professional stage. They won't meet twice a season on the same court with everything on the line. Once the novelty wears off, so will the supposed antagonism." Immediately, a flurry of pundits jumped in. Some applauded Demita's candor, others accused her of underestimating the power of personal narratives. Yet as the weeks rolled by, evidence seemed to back her claim. Clark continued racking up eye-popping numbers, and Reese focused on leading her team through the Western Conference gauntlet, rarely allowing interviews to veer into personal digs at her former college opponent. Meanwhile, storylines shifted toward Clark's pursuit of the scoring title and Reese's battle to lead a young Sky roster deeper into the playoffs. Fan forums that once exploded with "who's better?" debates began feeling quieter, as if the rivalry legend had been a lightning strike in a bottle, electric but unsustainable. The era of head-to-head trash talk gave way to respect, as both stars repeatedly emphasized their admiration for one another in press conferences. But if Demita was right, what did that say about the broader spectacle? Had social media inflamed a phantom feud simply to sell clips and articles? And more importantly, what did fans truly want? A fair comparison or the intoxicating drama of an us versus them narrative? As the regular season unfurled, the question echoed across arenas. Was the rivalry dead or merely evolving? Angel Reese, for her part, was all too eager to clarify. In an interview just days after the season opener's fracas, she sat calmly. Behind a microphone, her posture relaxed and her voice steady. "Look," she began, "I respect Caitlin. She's a phenomenal player. Maybe the best point guard I've ever guarded. But I don't wake up thinking about her. I wake up thinking about how to help my team win." She went on to describe the flagrant as part of the game, a foul, a mistake, a lesson, nothing more. Her tone was measured, her words genuine, as she redirected every question about Clark back to her own career trajectory and the realities of being a rookie in the WNBA. Her mother had, admittedly, injected more fuel into the hype before the draft, declaring that Angel would teach that girl a lesson and predicting the sky would run right through the fever. But Reese herself seemed committed to extinguishing the flames. She spoke of how their brief college overlapped, how she admired Clark's work ethic, and how the true rivalry she cared about was between her and every center who dared oppose her rebounding. This unexpected pivot reframed the narrative. It wasn't about personal vendettas, but about two stars navigating a new era together. Fans who once thirsted for conflict suddenly found themselves rooting for collaboration, imagining these talents teaming up in all-star settings, even whispering wishes of a future Olympic medal alongside one another. Could it be that respect and, not rancor, would define their pro-relationship? And if so, what legacy would this leave for the next generation of players who idolize them? In the end, the story of Caitlin Clark ended the biggest rivalry in the WNBA is less about a feud and more about transformation. The taunt in 2023 ignited a narrative that captivated millions, driving women's basketball into record viewership territory. The Elite Eight clash in 24 and the draft that followed created a media cyclone that seemed unstoppable. But by the time they faced off in May 2025, it became clear that the real impact wasn't in who scored more or who hauled in more rebounds. It was the sheer magnetism both brought to every game, an effect that transcended any table of stats. Analysts like Rachel Demita argued the rivalry was a myth foisted on fans, and those who followed Reese and Clark soon realized the truth. There was never genuine animosity, only mutual respect and a shared mission to elevate their sport. Instead of fueling a feud, their legend became a lesson in how media hype can give birth to stories that matter less than the substance of excellence. Today, Clark's mastery at the point and Reese's dominance inside continue to draw crowds, inspire young athletes, and shatter broadcast records. The pages of history will remember that initial taunt as the spark that lit a fire under women's basketball. But the flame that endures is one forged by curiosity, talent, and an audience, hungry for stars who dare to transcend the expected. So go ahead, tell someone that the biggest rivalry burned out before it began, but also share how it effectively set ablaze an entire league, redefining what was possible for women's sports. Because in the end, the real headline isn't that a rivalry died. It's that these two extraordinary athletes helped birth a new era, one in which every game feels like a story worth telling.